Okay, so in this video, I'm just gonna go over a very simple wax. Depending on where you're gonna be skiing or snowboarding, I'm lucky here on the island, we have pretty much 90% of the time the same snow condition, which is -5 to 0 temperature-wise. So that's kind of the wax everybody carries and it works out well. But when I lived in like Edmonton, they would have waxes for all different conditions because people in Edmonton generally traveled unless they wanted to go to a river valley. So they would travel to places, so a lot of ski shops would offer a number of waxes depending on where you're going, right? If you're coming to the island, that's -5 to 0. But if you're going to Sunshine or Marmot or Lake Louise, generally that's gonna be colder, harder stuff where you're gonna be looking for a wax that is in that colder spectrum that will protect the board or skis a lot more. Now this one here will have this little red light on indicating that it is warming up. Once it is warmed up, that light just goes off. So while that's warming up, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna inspect the base. So as I'm inspecting the base, I'm gonna take my little knife here and just run my hand along it, avoiding the edges, but I feel like a little bump there. And it does feel dry. So there's a little bump here I'm gonna try and get off. So I'm just gonna slowly chop it out. Just to get rid of that burr, that's all. So that's gone. I don't really have any scratches that are deep enough that I want to like fill them with P-Tex or anything. Everything else is pretty good. So what I'm gonna do now is take my wax, melt the wax, it's gonna come off, and you're just gonna add it to the board. I'm gonna use the waxing iron and continuously move it, but try and get a nice sheen to the board. And if there's a spot like here, I kind of want a little more wax. Easy, add a little more wax. And I'm just trying to cover the entire base. Okay, so now that I got the wax pretty much covering the whole board, I'm just gonna go nice and slow, but constantly moving, just to make sure it's nice, even coat and even temperature. Yeah, so that's that. So I've got the wax evenly coated along the board. I've gone over it a few passes, always keeping sure that I'm moving the iron around and letting that wax kind of soak into it. Right now it's pretty warm. I'm gonna let this sit for about 10 minutes and I'm gonna wax some of my other stuff while I have everything out. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing with the skis. I'm just gonna have a quick look. I'm gonna knock off any excess dirt. Man, do they ever need a wax. The difference with the skis is obviously we have the brakes here. So what you'll have to do is get like a thick elastic band, push down the brake, or these are touring skis. I really could just lock it in the touring mode. That just holds the brakes out of the way. Otherwise, it's basically the same thing. Get the wax in the bottom. So the other option, since these are touring bindings, is I can put it into walk mode and lock them in. So then the binding's out of the way. I'll move it right to the edge of this so that the cord's not having any issues. And I will melt some wax on here. And you're just gonna start scraping. Again, this is not something, this is a messy kind of thing. Gives you a lot of wax flakes. You don't wanna be doing this in your kitchen, anywhere near carpet you like. Garage is the best place for it. I have a vacuum here that I use to vacuum it up. So I'll just start in the middle, thumbs in the back, and you can see what kind of things come off it here. So clean off that edge so it's as sharp as it can be. So there's actually a little notch on this tool here for the scraper that is used for that. So same thing, you don't have to press too hard, but you just need to go along it. So the board has been waxed, scraped, edges cleaned up. Now it's time to make it look good and make it uniform. So the wax that's actually gonna protect your board and be useful on the board is embedded in the board. So you can't over scrape. You're not gonna scrape off too much that you're losing some of the wax. You can under scrape where you still have wax on the board, and that's gonna be actually hindering your sliding a little bit, so it's not gonna be consistent on the board. So the next step I do is I take one of these brushes here, kind of a Swix brush. It's got stiff bristles on the bottom. And I do a kind of a hatch pattern, so I just go kind of the one way, starting at one end. And already that looks way better. So I've got it going that way. Now I'm gonna do the hatch pattern just to make it look better and catch any areas I may have missed. And that's pretty much it. I might do one last little scrape here just to make sure I got everything. But a lot of that'll come off while you're riding too, especially if you're in harder pack, icier conditions. And that's it. Take the last cloth and just give it a little bit of a wipe to clean it up and get some of that loose stuff off. And it is hydrated now, so it feels really good. I'll rub my hand over it a little bit and boom, there you go. Clean wax. Clean up the top sheet a little bit so you can wipe off whatever's loose. And if there's anything left over, you can use, there's actual wax remover if it's really bad. But like with the bike, I'll get a fresh rag for it. One-to-one alcohol. So isopropyl alcohol to water, 1-to-1. Give it a little bit of a spray. And wipe down the top sheet. Get that nice and clean. Get the edges. And that's it, perfectly waxed. It's great. Ready to go ride.